everyone. Welcome to another episode of It's Messy, but It's So Good. And today my guest is Rob Hillman. And Rob has been a registered nurse and a former theater actor and a self-proclaimed travel addict. He and his husband, David, have lived in 6 continents and visited 90 countries. And he goes on long sabbaticals, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Recently, David and Rob walked the Camino Frances, which is a 500-mile pilgrimage from southern France across northern Spain, which took over 39 days. If you love travel and you have a dream of traveling the world, listen to this episode and check out their YouTube. See you on the other side. Enjoy. Welcome to It's Messy, but It's So Good. And today my guest is Rob Hillman. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
And Rob and I go back around 9 to 10 years. We met in a mastermind group coaching program with Emily Utter. And we had like this seminar out on the West Coast. I believe it was in San Francisco. And
Yeah.
it was a great experience. And I've been kind of seeing some of Rob's 10 Degrees Warmer YouTubes and so forth. And it was so inspirational. And I really wanted to really, interview you because I think there's a lot of people out there in the world that have a lot of dreams of travel and they get stuck, including myself, I might add. So,
including me, and I do a lot of travel, so I totally get it.
yeah. So I just want to introduce briefly Rob. He's a nurse, a registered nurse, as I am. And we had that in common in the mastermind. And he's also a theater actor and a self-proclaimed travel addict.
Very true.
And he has visited with his husband, David, right?
Yes.
90 countries and 6 continents. So I would love it if you could just talk about what inspired you to do this and how you went about it.
So yeah, that's a big question. It's funny because you kind of give my little intro and you can see my life is not exactly what you would call conventional. I've kind of been all over the place. There's so much I find interesting in the world, and I want to keep trying different things. And so I have done a bunch of different things, but I was very lucky when I was young. So my first career, I got my theater major and I was a professional, stage actor. I did a Broadway show. And one of the jobs that I got very unexpectedly, and I was, I think, 24 when I got that job. I'd never been out of the country before. And it just opened my eyes that there's this whole world out there and it's interesting. And Singapore, very easy first country to go to. It's so Western. They speak English. It's a big, beautiful city. Like, it was just amazing. And then we went to Taiwan, which is still a big city, but like not like Singapore, at least back then. It's much different now. But in the late 90s, like, it was, no one spoke English. And we were able to get around, just fine. But it was, a little bit more of an adventure. And between those two experiences, it was just like, wow, this is what I want to do. And ever since then, travel has sort of been the theme of my life, where, I went back home after that tour. And basically, we take sabbaticals all the time, where we'll work for a couple of years and we save up all of our money. And then we'll go travel. And maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 2 years. It's so interesting, whether we're in, Ecuador, Easter Island, or, Europe, or Southeast Asia is one of my favorite places. I'm in Thailand right now. And the world is just amazing. And it's just being open to it and being willing to say yes. And so seeing what the world has to offer me.
Yeah. And as far as, your travels, how long have you been away on this sabbatical so far?
So the current one, we've taken several over the years. I basically will go back and work maybe 2 or 3 years. Well, I guess, oh, I hadn't even thought about this, but we're going to hit 2 years. We're like 2 weeks away. I think the right after Thanksgiving, we'll hit our 2 year mark for this particular trip.
Wow. Do you have a home base where you keep your place and then you maybe Airbnb it or something?
So good question, because every traveler does this very differently. We have like on previous sabbaticals, I basically sold everything we owned. We got rid of everything. We got rid of my car. We got like I think we have like 3 or 4 boxes at my parents-in-law that's got some like yearbooks and pictures and stuff in it. Just a couple of boxes of memories, Christmas ornament to officially
Mhm.
retire. We're gonna have to
Mm.
start over again, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So when you come back to the States, then do you just rent a place, or do you do an Airbnb? I mean, because you're going to stay like another year or two or three, right?
So we'll rent a place. Yeah, I've never owned a house. We always rent because it's just
Yeah.
low commitment
Yes.
because I can't like I say I'm going to live here for 5 years. I've never lasted 5 years. New York City, I did last 5 years in New York City when I was in my 20s.
I know that you walked the Camino Frances, which is part of the Camino Santiago, right? That's the broad overview.
Yes,
Um, and
yes.
I mean, there's so much to ask you about that. And I
Oh
have
wow,
been
yeah.
looking at your YouTubes. One thing I saw is that you guys are super organized about everything you do. And I think
We have a lot of
you
practice.
yeah, you plan out things really well and you figure out I know things happen along the way that you can't plan for, but you really go into it with a lot of organization, which I think your YouTube videos are very helpful for people. Um, but tell me a little bit about that experience, like what inspired you to do that? And I know there a lot of people do it, but what inspired you personally to do it?
So yeah, everybody has their own pathway that leads them to the Camino. For me, on my very first backpacking trip, this was in 2000, 2001, and I was in Cambodia. And it's like, this is before cell phones, or, we didn't have a computer with us. And so when you were just sitting around with nothing to do, you couldn't watch Netflix and I'd read books. And every place that we would stay would have book exchanges. And I'd go and I would read, crazy detective thrillers. And one of the books that I read was a book called I think it's called The Pilgrimage by Paulo Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist, which is one of my favorite books ever. And he wrote a book about walking the Camino. About 10 years ago, a movie came out with Martin Sheen called The Way.
Yeah.
And like a lot of other people, I watched that movie and it was like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this. Meanwhile, the Camino has gotten much more commercialized, much more popular. And so we decided this was the year and we walked. It took us about 6 weeks, about the end of July, mid July. And uh, the Camino is my favorite thing I've ever done. And I got blisters and I was, in physical pain most of the way because I couldn't figure that out. And even with that, one of my favorite things I've ever done, just everything about it, I loved it.
Yeah. Was it a spiritual experience for you?
That's another good question. So I am not religious. Uh, and, people walk the Camino for different reasons.
Hmm.
Certainly, historically, it is a religious pilgrimage. And so there are a lot of people who do so for that specific purpose. But there are a lot of other reasons, or just for the adventure of it. There's, tourists that do it now, where you get these big tour groups that come in, or they'll be like, we'd see groups of like 25, 15-year-olds that were clearly on some kind of school sponsored pilgrimage. If you're called to do it, I think it's something that's worthwhile to do. It teaches you things about yourself that you don't necessarily expect. I have not talked to anybody who regretted that they did it. And I myself am very grateful. And frankly, I want to go back and do it again.
Yeah, I saw that in your video. Would you mind sharing like what one or two things that it taught you about yourself?
Lesson I took away from this one was humility. I
Mm.
really, I walk all the time. And, I think on average, because I count my steps, like I'm getting, 11,000 steps a day,
Oh,
which is like 6 miles just as a baseline. And then, we'll do big hikes where we hiked, rim to rim on the Grand Canyon, or, we did a massive hike when we were in Maria in French Polynesia up to an outlook. We do that all the time and it's not a big deal. So I really, it was like I knew, okay, I'm going to be walking every day. It's 500 miles, 800 kilometers. I had lots of blisters. We didn't schedule enough days for me just to, what I needed to do is sit for a week and just let everything heal. And I never could do that. So it would get better, but then I would have to keep walking and then it would get worse. And it was just this, I really had to start listening to my body. And instead
mm,
of being frustrated by it, just accept it, that this was my experience. We'd walk and we'd get into the town and I go to bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And because I didn't want to walk anymore and put any more pressure on the blisters. So like a lot of those towns I didn't get to explore, which was very disappointing, but also it was the right thing to do. I had to take care of myself. We had to skip a couple of days. I had to take a bus. Got to the point where I needed some extra days, and the only way to get extra days was to bus ahead so I could sit for 3 days. And we stayed in Leon. And there was some guilt at first until I just realized I was being responsible. I was doing what I needed to protect my body and to keep myself healthy. You hear stories about people who let their blisters go and they get bone infections. I
oh
didn't
wow.
want that to happen, and so I took care of myself and I did the right thing. And uh, that was just a good lesson for me, I think, just to be able to listen to myself and not get carried away in what I thought the Camino should be, but just to accept it for what it was. And that was my experience, and that was perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, when you go back, you would have take all the knowledge, the first time
Oh,
around and,
yeah.
prepare maybe in different ways, different shoes, different socks or whatever. More
Yes.
breaks, I don't know. But yeah, yeah. So, but it leads me to another question in general. Um, Traveling and not like being home, quote, in one stationary place, can
Mhm.
be challenging because after a while you're always on the move and you're having these amazing experiences. But on the other hand, there must be challenges and obstacles that you face despite your passion. And
Oh, for
this
sure.
podcast is called It's Messy, but it's so good.
Uh-huh.
Um, what was the messiest thing about doing the traveling?
So travel is interesting because it's hard to understand until you do it. Like everyone goes on vacation and you go someplace really cool for a week, or if you're lucky, 2 weeks. And because it's your big opportunity, you're just going for broke. And you have activities planned every day, and you're eating crazy food and amazing food and getting drinks and going to, a party, and, up in the morning to get on a bus for some adventure. And it's exhausting. And then you finally get to the end and you have to go home and go back to work. You're like, I need a vacation from my vacation.
Exactly.
Um, when you're doing it full time, it's very different. So we're going out and we're in a new country almost every month, but we're living here. And so, we're at the point now, I'm not looking for an adventure every day. There are lots of days where it's like my big adventure is going to the grocery store, because going to the grocery store is my favorite thing to do in a new city. It's just so much fun. I will spend an hour going up every single aisle and seeing what are their flavors of chips and what are their flavors of Oreos and what are their flavors of hummus, because it's different in different places around the world. And I always find that interesting. People often think, oh, you must be rich to travel so long. because they're thinking, vacations are very expensive. But when you're doing it full time, I spend much less as a traveler because staying for a whole month. Um, when I was young, we did a more faster travel, where we'd be in a new place every 3 days. And that was fine when I was in my 20s and into 30s, but I'm 51 now. That's too tiring. So we definitely like to stay a month almost everywhere that we go. We spent 2 months in Kuala Lumpur just recently, and I could stay there longer. I love Kuala Lumpur. But kind of those longer stays where you just get to settle in, you find a routine. We're still doing it adventures, and we've got a food tour planned in a couple of days here in Chiang Mai. I'm super excited about. There's stuff, but there's also days where we just sit around the house and watch some
Yeah.
Netflix. And I went to the dentist today and I got to pat myself on the back for being an adult and going to the dentist. And, but that cleaning at the dentist here in Chiang Mai cost me like $29,
Wow.
which is much less, I have no insurance. That's just out of pocket. That, get your life in while you're traveling.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's like more being present just in your life and just being in an environment where you're
Yeah.
learning and you're getting to see
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Like I think a really good skill for a long-term traveler is that self-awareness. I remember this was years ago. We were running around Central America, and we went through Mexico and we got into Guatemala, and we went everywhere in Guatemala. I went to Tikal and Lake Atitlan and in Antigua. We went down to Honduras and went scuba diving out on some islands. And I was very on edge and frustrated, and I didn't know why. And I was like, something's wrong with me. And I don't know why I'm having the time of my life, but I'm feeling depressed. And what am I supposed to do to fix this? Like, I've done something wrong because I don't know why I'm feeling like this. I'm just giving myself permission that I'm going to sit here, and there was like two English channels on the TV, and I watched movies, and we ordered in, and I really only stayed in bed, I think, half a day. It was just more giving myself permission that I could do it. And then we started getting up and going to see the sunrise, and then we got up and went and saw the sunset, and then I think it was 2 days later we went and took a snorkeling. But like we really just sat there and didn't really do a whole lot, and it was a vacation kind of from the trip, and to
Yeah.
let myself calm down and not just be so exhausted. And I think that kind of travel fatigue hits people, and they think they've done something wrong when it's really completely normal. And once you travel long enough, you start to recognize it better. And now I can recognize it in myself, where I'm like, I need a vacation day or a couple of days just to chill out and not have to worry, because traveling long term is a lot of work. Booking your hotels and booking flights and looking up tours and which country can I go to and what visas do I need, and I need to get an eSIM for my phone so it'll work when I get there. And then where am I going to go next, and where's the cheapest ticket? Like the details go on and on. And most of them they're all solvable problems, but they can sometimes be a lot. And sometimes you just have to, it's self-awareness of knowing when you're ready for it and knowing when you need to take a break, and just honoring that about yourself and
Yeah.
giving yourself some space and some grace to handle it.
Yeah. And having that good communication with your partner to
Oh
understand
yeah.
where each other is at.
Yes.
That's a whole
Because
nother area.
yeah, because sometimes it happens to us together and sometimes it's just one of us. And so you definitely need the good communication to get through that.
Yeah, for sure. So, what would you say, and I ask all my guests this, is the biggest gift or gifts that you have received from doing this traveling?
Okay, I'm going to tell you my number one favorite story of how I really started doing this. I was, I had that job where I was in Singapore and Taiwan, and then I came back. We moved to New York City, And one night, like I just kept thinking about it, right? Where it was this amazing experience. And I knew people went backpacking and I wanted to do it, but I had, all the reasons why I couldn't do that. And then one night I went to a audition kind of spontaneously. Someone called and said, please come. So I went, and while I was waiting out in the hallway to go in, I started talking to a guy who's sitting next to me in line, just random person. And he very casually said, oh, yeah, well, I just got back from a year-long backpacking trip where I went around the world. And I was like, stop everything. Tell me everything. I want to know every detail about this trip because I want to do it. He's telling me all these amazing stories. And I was, just so fascinated by it. And then he's like, so, are you going to do it? And immediately, like, my body just shifted and was like, oh, well, I can't do it because, I'm trying to get an agent and I've got these auditions and I'm trying to make a name for myself. And he let me go on to this. He's like, but I do have one question for you. Do you want to be the person who wanted to travel, or do you want to be the person who traveled? And that one question completely broke my brain.
Mm.
And like right after he said that, I got called in to do the audition, which I don't remember at all. It was probably terrible because I was so distracted. I went home and I had, I think, a half hour on the train. And when I got home, I told David, I was like, I'm going backpacking. I don't know how, but I'm going to be the person who did it, not the person who just wanted to do it. And once, like, this goes back to The Alchemist, right? That Paulo Coelho of, once you decide what you want, the universe makes it happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the next Monday, I was working in a temp office and I went to my boss and was like, I have to do this. And like, she was able to work out some stuff with me. So I was able to make some more money. I started picking up catering jobs. So I was working like all the time. But 4 months later, I was on a plane to New Zealand.
Wow.
And it, that is a lesson I have kept with me my whole life, where it's like, do I want to be the person who wants to do things, or do I want to be the person who did it? And once you decide that, your brain shifts gears into, why are all the reasons I can't do this, into, how do I solve this problem? How do I make this work out? Because there's lots of ways to make it work out. You just have to put your sights on it, and the universe makes it happen for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And I believe 100% in that. In anything you want to create,
Mm-hmm.
our brain is basically trying to protect us, as we know. And
Yes.
once you see that really clearly, and you sometimes have support or a mentor, or someone comes into your path for a reason, and
Mm-hmm.
it's that inspiration, and then it's our choice whether we go with it or not. And
Yeah.
sitting back and looking at everything. Okay, what is the brain doing? I think it's so tied to creativity and really inspiration of just allowing ourselves to trust. I have on my
Mm-hmm.
refrigerator, trust the process, and it works for everything in my life.
Yes.
Whether my kids are going through something, or, you know, um, I have some big event coming up, or I want to create something, it's comes down to, you know, is it going to bring you joy? Do you want to do it? Is it a should, or is it really coming from your soul?
Mm-hmm.
And once you know
Mm-hmm.
that, and sometimes getting the support, or just getting, the clarity, and then taking those small steps, as you said, things just
Yes.
come right into your path, and that's it.
Doing the things we want to do is a skill, and it can be learned. And so it's just practicing. I think one of the best side effects of traveling so much is I now trust myself that I can figure out anything.
Wow.
When I get in a position where, I was in Vietnam and the police stopped me and I was in the middle of nowhere, and, it was like, what am I going to do in this situation? Like, Are they gonna do they want to bribe? Is there something else wrong? They don't speak English. I don't speak Vietnamese. Like I had no idea what was going on, but I stayed calm, and in the end, it all worked out. Or, just wherever I am in the world, when there's visa problems or language issues, like earlier in my travels where I'd get anxious about like, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure this out? At this point, I know it's always going to work out. It
Yeah.
always works out. When I was in Taiwan, there was a group of us that wanted to go see. This is such a silly story, but it's on point. Like we wanted to go see the Chinese opera. And so we went into the ticket office, and the woman spoke no English. Of course, we spoke no Mandarin. And we had to communicate with her which show we wanted to see, what night we wanted to see it, which performance, because they had two performances that day, where we wanted to sit, how much the tickets cost, how many tickets we wanted because we were buying for a group. Like there was a lot of detail that went into that interaction where we couldn't speak at all. And this was, 97. There was no Google Translate to help us. We just had, it was all body language and pointing, and we figured it out. Like all those kind of things, kind of another adventure for the day rather than being this catastrophe that's really hard and stressful and takes up all your energy. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I had another guest who's living in Mexico and traveled a lot of places. She told a story about her losing her cell phone, and she was so
Ugh.
panicked. And
Yeah.
she remembered her mom's voice when she was a little girl. Everything always works out. Everything always works out. And
Mhm.
that became her mantra, and everything worked out.
Mhm.
And
It does.
at the time I was waiting for a result from a breast biopsy, and she had no idea the impact she had on me when she said that. And it just reminded me, you know, just everything works out, and it's okay. It's gonna work out no matter
Mhm.
what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when I got off the podcast, I mean, I was in tears because it's like the universe provided that person in my
Mhm.
life at that exact
At the
moment.
right moment. Yes.
So, it's just amazing how we all connect with each other and learn and grow,
Yes.
and if we're open to it, you know, and
Yes.
and if you want it, you know, you gotta want it.
Exactly. I mean, I talk about travel all the time because that's sort of my thing, but it doesn't matter whether it's travel or bird watching or, whatever your passion is. It's available to you if you're brave enough to go out and get it. You're going to figure it out,
Yeah.
and I think too, another big fear a lot of people have specifically about travel is we get this idea in our head of what it's supposed to be. And we're trying to, live up to that Instagram picture
Mm.
that we saw. And that's the right way. And what you learn pretty quickly when you're out traveling, because things do not go to plan so often, but still sometimes when things go wrong, that's when the most amazing adventures happen. And so you realize there isn't a wrong answer. Like you can spend 2 hours trying to decide between two hotels, which view you think is going to be nicest or which is the better location. It doesn't matter which hotel you're going to go to, you're going to have a great experience in either one. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what country you go to. For me at this point, I don't care. Like I can go back to Kuala Lumpur for the seventh time and have a great experience, or I could go somewhere I've never been before, or I could meet friends somewhere because they're saying, come visit me here. I am totally confident that there's no question that I'm going to make it be the right answer, no matter what happens, no matter where I end up, no matter how I end up doing it, no matter how much money I spend. I know I'm going to have a great time because I'm a person who has a great time, and I
Yeah.
know I can figure it out. I can rely on myself.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
it
amazing.
it's been good lessons for me to learn and to be able to trust myself like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. As far as getting in touch with you, can you just, and we'll put it in the show notes as well. Can you just share, if it's okay with you, your contact information if people want to reach out to you or have questions, or, also subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're interested in long-term travel, you can check us out on YouTube. It's just at 10 degrees warmer because I'm a person who always wants it to be warm.
So you're not going to Iceland.
The cold, so uh, that's how we came up with that name. But yeah, 10 degrees warmer. I'm with them, but if you wanted to reach out a little more personally,
Yeah,
but we have a lot of fun with the YouTube
perfect.
videos. It's a way for us to be creative and remember things. Like we got to the point where we were like, we've been to so many crazy, Easter Island and Machu Picchu and Angkor Wat and Borobudur, and we hardly have any pictures of ourselves even at these places. And so we're like, if we start making videos, at least we're going to have a record of what we do. When we were on the Camino, we shot a video every single day talking about the walk that we did, where we stayed at night, what the food we were eating, how much everything cost. We had a lot of fun with that series. It's just, yeah, it's fun to, partially it's to make art and to help people with information we would want to know about places, but then it's also a way for us to document the fun stuff that we get up to so I can remember it.
Oh, definitely. That's one thing I think about this podcast, that my kids will have this, to listen to when I'm
Exactly.
not here anymore or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a record of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much, Rob. This has been really amazing. I know that it's going to touch people out there that really have a desire and are thinking of doing something like this, even for a shorter
Mhm.
term.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and might be a little, be in fear or feel a little isolated in their feelings. So I think your information and your YouTube videos are really well done, and there's a lot of information in there. So I think it's going to be really helpful to people. So reach out to Rob and check out his YouTube video and also his Instagram, which I started to follow you, and his Facebook, all 10 degrees warmer. And
Yes.
I'll also put it in the show notes. But anything else you want to share before we close for today?
Um, I, that's a good question. I should have been prepared with a good zinger at the end.
That's okay.
I will say one thing, just because this has been the biggest lesson I have learned in the last year. Um, Find community. Uh, I think we notice this a lot on the Camino, but even other places, you get out and you're traveling the world, and it can be lonely sometimes. And I think a lot of people have that fear they're going to go out and just be by themselves. And there is community out here to connect with. There's lots of Facebook groups and expat groups. And we've started meeting people, and now we've got friends that we've met in several different places around the world. The world is much smaller than you think once you get out into it. But finding that community of people who understand what you're going through, again, for us it's travel. For you or anybody else, it could be whatever your life is, wherever it's headed and what you want to do with your life. But find people who understand that, because once you can get there and talk that shorthand with people and just feel comfortable in your passion, it changes everything. There's that old quote, you're the average of the five people you hang out with most. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it feels like it is. And find your people who are doing the things that you want to do and are having that same experience, and you're going to feel so much better.
Yeah, I really, through my life, I agree 100%. I've found anything from infertility issues I went through, which created a miracle for me, finding a group of people, to, learning skills and, just anything I've wanted to do in my life. It's always fun to do it with people.
Yes, always.
We're always learning that.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
well, thank you, Rob, so much. And
Thank you. This was so much fun.
we'll see you on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of It's Messy, But It's So Good. And I want to thank my guest, Rob Hillman. It was so inspirational and so wonderful to connect with you again, Rob. And you can check out the contact information in the show notes. Rob has several ways to contact him. He has his Facebook, which is 10 Degrees Warmer, Instagram 10 Degrees Warmer /reels, and his website 10degreeswarmer.com. Also, I wanted to point out some of the highlights of the podcast and summarize some of the really, I would say, wise and well-lived highlights. One is, of course, mindset shift and long-term travel. Rob shared a lot about really taking on a slower pace and shifting from vacation mode to living in new places, to really embracing every day and being present rather than rushing around through tourist experiences. He also talked about getting involved with a community, find a community of fellow travelers and locals to make the whole experience more meaningful and making more connections. A little bit about the Camino de Santiago. He really founded a journey of humility and self-care where he had to rest for several days due to some health issues with his feet. And he really talked a lot about how the Camino really taught him lessons in humility and listening to his body and self-care. He talked a lot about the financial side of long-term travel as well, that it's actually cheaper than short vacations when staying in one place for over a month. And then, of course, he shared his travel content and philosophy. And you can check out his YouTube channel along with his husband, David, 10 Degrees Warmer, and you will find a wealth of information there. There's a whole series on the Camino Santiago, and then there's other YouTube videos there just to learn about long-term travel. So again, thank you to all my listeners. Thank you so much, Rob. It was so great to connect with you again. And don't forget, share this episode with anyone that you think might benefit and enjoy it. And we'd appreciate that. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.